Hi everybody, and welcome to another live question and answer session with me, Martin Twycross. These are an opportunity for you to come along and ask me any questions you have on mediumship, development, spiritualism related topics. You can come along and pick my brains. So welcome to everyone who's joining me in the room, and also if you're joining on the replay, then welcome to you too. I do hope that everyone has had a lovely Christmas and that you've been enjoying the festivities. So before I get stuck into it, I'd just like to say as well that remind everyone at the moment that I have a sale on, a holiday sale on my website. Let me show you. Holiday sale on my website. It runs until midnight, Sunday, the 4th of January. And there's 10% off all my products, my courses, my study program, my videos, my audio meditations. 10% off site-wide. So if that's of interest, do head over to my website, www.martintwycross.com, and do check out what's on offer. I should say as well that the prices will be going up in the new year. So when the sale ends, the prices will be rising. So now is the time to get them at the cheapest possible price if you are interested. So if there's anything that takes your fancy, please do have a look, and it all helps support the channel also. So do let me know if you can hear me okay. Sometimes it all works perfectly my end, but then I find out it doesn't work your end. So if you're hearing me well, let me know. That it would be much appreciated. If you're in the room, do pop your name in the chat box and say hello. So with my sessions, my live question answer sessions, I thought I'd do something different for this one, and may do it for the future ones as well. I thought I'd start off by doing a mini talk. People often ask me questions that I get multiple times, and I keep thinking to myself, that would make a really good video. And often I don't get around to being able to work it out, script it, sort it out. So I thought I'd use the beginning of each of these classes to go through a frequently asked question that I get. And while I'm doing that, those in the room, you can think of any questions you have and you can pop them in the chat box. And then when I'm finished talking about this, which should take 10 minutes or so, we'll then move on to all the questions in the chat box. So Claire, thank you very much for confirming you can hear me. It's always good to know that actually the system works. Sometimes technology can have the gremlins in. Okay, so the thing I want to talk about this evening in terms of the question that I get asked very regularly is, what can I do to speed up my mediumship development? I'm in development, what can I do to speed it up? And many subsidiary questions I get asked around that as well is there anything that can unfold my mediumship in a hurry? Is there any course that can make me an instant medium? Is there any technique or thing I can do that will make my mediumship unfold rapidly? So that's the question I want to cover in tonight's class to start with. And the simple answer is there are no shortcuts. When it comes to developing mediumship, there are no shortcuts. No teacher, no course can make you a medium within a certain number of days, certain number of weeks, or even a certain number of months. I do see people advertising, and people tell me that somebody advertises this course. By the end of the course, in X weeks' time or X months' time, you'll be a fabulous working medium. And that's just simply unrealistic. That's just simply fluff. My channel's strapline, bringing you down to earth teachings on mediumship and development without the fluff, and that is truly fluff. That is truly BS. It doesn't make sense. Mediumship takes time to develop, it takes time to unfold, and it takes effort to do. So there is no instant mediumship, just add hot water. That's not going to happen. And the thing is, there's no simple tool, technique that can make your mediumship develop much more rapidly. Some people say, oh, you need to sit and open your third eye. No matter how hard I try, I can't open my third eye, I would say. Or you need to awaken your kundalini and you'll be a fabulous medium. Or you need to be in the presence of some guru or some very well-known teacher, and just by being in their presence, some of their ability, some of their spirituality, some of their mediumship will rub off onto you. No, it's not going to happen. Absolutely not. That is not going to happen. So mediumship, it takes time and effort to develop. Like anything worth developing, it will take time, it will take effort. It's not going to be a quick process. If I said to you, go and learn to play the piano to a very highly competent level, and you'd never played an instrument before, it's going to take you time, it's going to take you effort, it's going to take you practice, it's going to take you learning things, it's going to take you working with a teacher to unfold that musicality within you that will enable you to play that instrument to a reasonable standard. Nobody expects to go to a course on playing the piano and be an instant piano player to a very high standard at the end. It just doesn't make sense. It's the same with mediumship. To do mediumship, you've got to put in the time, you've got to put in the effort. And that to some degree involves a degree of sacrifice. It involves a degree of commitment. You'll have to let something else go in your life to do it, or you'll have to make the time in your life to do it. That's the important thing to understand. We also need to go to classes, courses, workshops, training, circles to be able to develop and unfold it. We need to work with teachers in mediumship to be able to develop and unfold it. Although I do have a video on my channel that's worth checking out. Can you develop mediumship on your own? I do recommend you check that one out because it fits in pretty well what I'm talking about. But for most people to develop mediumship, it's going to take you several years for you to develop mediumship. And that's, for many people, it takes several years. For some, it even takes decades. So you've got to be in it for the long haul. Absolutely. There is no instant mediumship. So having said all of that, is there anything you can do to help speed it up? Is there anything you can do to help your mediumship unfold quicker? And that's where the answer is yes, there is. So there isn't anything that will help your mediumship unfold in an instant, but funnily enough, there are tools and techniques that we can use that will help your mediumship to unfold at a quicker pace. The first one you may have heard me talk about often on the channel is sitting in the power, also known as sitting for spirit. And the reason it's called sitting for spirit is because we're blending with the spirit world. We're making ourselves accessible as an instrument for spirit, as a medium for spirit to develop and to use. So it's not just about sitting in the power, it's about blending with spirit and spending time in the presence of spirit. For no time spent in the presence of spirit is ever wasted. So when we sit in the power, it helps strengthen our connection to the spirit world, it helps strengthen our connection to our own soul, and it also helps strengthen our connection to the divine, God, call it what you will. I don't mind what you call it, but all of that is a part of sitting in the power. And sitting in the power helps unfold the potentials within us. When we're blended with the spirit realm, we may think nothing's happening, but the potentials within us are beginning to unfold. The potentials within us are beginning to rise to the surface. And that's why it develops your mediumship much quicker. For me, I believe sitting in the power to be some of the best training to develop mediumship. The practice of focus, the practice of learning to remove distractions, to quieten the mind, to create that blend with spirit. When we drop that blend, to rebuild it, is some of the best training we can do to learn to develop mediumship. It's an excellent tool, but it has to be done correctly. There's many people who I know who teach some version of sitting in the power, which to me is not what I would call sitting in the power. But the good news is I do have a playlist on my channel for sitting in the power. There is the meditation itself. There are 4 videos on how to do it and common problems you'll encounter. So do check out my playlist on sitting in the power. So the next thing that can really help you unfold your mediumship much more quickly is to understand the theory that underpins mediumship, to understand the foundations of mediumship. When I first started doing mediumship, I'd go to circles, classes, courses, and teachers would say to me, just make a link. And I'd say, how? How am I supposed to make a link? What is the process? What is the theory? And they didn't teach it. They just said, do it. Just do it. I'm like, but how? So I asked lots of questions. I was probably a complete pain in the backside for many tutors in my early days because I wanted to get my head around how we do it. What is the technique? What works for you? Will that work for me? If not? And so I really wanted to get to grips with understanding the theory that underpins mediumship. And once I got it, once I understood how it worked, it was much easier to develop. I myself, I developed my mediumship and went on to become a working medium very rapidly. Just over 18 months it was to my first demonstration on platform. Now, not everybody can develop that quickly. I get that. But for me, one of the things that really helped me was understanding the theoretical basis of mediumship, understanding what teachers were asking me to do when they said make a link with spirit, understanding what teachers meant when they were talking about evidence, messages, when they were talking about all the different aspects of mediumship. So once you know the theory, then the practice becomes so much easier. So for me, understanding the theory of mediumship is a very important tool. And you will know, of course, that I've developed a whole number of products. I've developed a series of videos which cover all different aspects of mediumship. That developed a study program based on those videos. And I've developed a whole bunch of courses that supplement that study program, and there's videos as well covering a whole range of topics. So if you want to find out the theory of mediumship, do check out what I offer. Probably the courses is probably the easiest place to start. Start with things like sitting for spirit and meditation, sitting for spirit, moving on to fundamentals of mediumship, getting better evidence. And then if you're looking to work platform and do private readings, there's courses on those as well. That would be an easy place to start. If money is a problem, then yeah, the videos can be another area to go to, because they start a lot cheaper and you can just buy them as and when you need them. So in producing all this material, it's based, remember I asked a lot of tutors a lot of questions to get it clear in my mind, and I structured it all out and I started producing this content, and people would say to me, the common feedback I got was, this was a missing piece of my puzzle. This was a missing link that so many people don't teach you, and it made life so much easier from that moment forwards. So that's very common feedback. If you check out the feedback on my website, you'll see that very regularly, that is something that a lot of people got a lot of benefit from. Another area as well that can speed up our mediumship is good teaching. If you go to a good teacher, if you go to good circles, good classes, good courses, good workshops, it can speed your mediumship up. Some circles and classes, to be honest, are little more than a social gathering. We have an impolite term in the UK of mother's meeting, where people just get together just to chat with each other, not really to do any work. And the exercises will not push anybody, will not help stretch anybody, will not allow anybody to work in different ways or unfold to their full potential, because it's not geared for that. It's just geared for, let's look at a lovely angel card, and if anyone gets a message, that's a benefit. But if not, we all have a good chat. So for me, those kind of circles will never help you to develop to your full potential at the greatest speed. Yeah, you may be able to develop a little bit in those circles, but they're not going to work particularly well. For me, students need to be pushed to make progress. We need to give people feedback on what's working in their mediumship and what's not working in their mediumship. It needs a good teacher who can do that. It needs good exercises to help students, get them to work in different ways, get them to work with different senses, get them to work with different evidence, get them to work with different tools and techniques. And by doing all of that, it helps develop the medium. Whereas if all I say to you is just make a link every single circle and I don't give you exercises, it's going to hold you back so much more. It's going to limit you so much more. So do seek out the best teachers you can find. Do seek out the best circles you can find. If a circle doesn't feel right, if you don't feel you're being worked hard enough, you can always move on, remember. You can always go and find something else. So that's important to recognize. Now, another area that very few people seem to talk about much, but for me can make a huge difference to your mediumship, is what I call self-development, or for some, spiritual self-development. And by that, I'm talking about working on self. Any issues you've got within you, we want to try and resolve them. Now, I worked as a therapist for some time, a hypnotherapist. And in my training, we had to resolve our own issues. This is very common with things like counseling and therapy. You have to work through all your own issues first, so you're a clear channel. So that basically, anytime somebody is working with you, you're not triggering your own stuff. So you can work with anybody without issue. And it should be the same for mediums. We want to be that clear channel for mediumship. We want, when anyone comes through us, we want it to be uncoloured by us, our baggage, our history. So we want to resolve any unresolved issues. We want to work through any fears, phobias. We want to work through our own stuff. We want to become the most spiritual person we can be. We want to spiritualize ourselves. We want to work for the right reasons, the right motivation. And in doing that, your mediumship will move on way quicker than if you don't do that. So for me, that is another extremely powerful tool. And When I began teaching my theoretical classes, the first one I started with was spiritual self-development. Now, I do have a course on spiritual self-development as well as a teaching video. So within my courses, there is one there on spiritual self-development, which I highly recommend if that topic interests you. Because really, we're seeking to operate from the greater being that we are, the soul that we are, the eternal being that we are, not just the ego self. We're seeking to allow our greater mind to be in the driving seat rather than our little ego mind or the inner child. So for me, spiritual self-development will make a huge difference to you in the long term. So the sooner you start it, the better. I see many mediums who get to a plateau in their development because they don't learn to work on self. But sometimes I see huge step changes with mediums when they do some work on self. So I highly recommend self-development as a powerful tool to progress your mediumship. It sounds odd because it's not mediumship you're developing. You're sorting yourself. You're working with your own spiritual aspects. You're seeking to become a more spiritual being. And not only will it help you with your progress in mediumship, it will help you absolutely with all areas of life, for sure. So in summary, you cannot force mediumship development. There are no quick fixes. There is no instant mediumship. You've got to give it the time and the effort it deserves. But of course, there are those techniques you can use to help you. You can work on your own spiritual development. You can spend time sitting in the presence of spirit by sitting in the power. You can understand the theory and foundations of mediumship so you understand what you're trying to accomplish when it comes to the practice, and seek out the best teachers you can find. And by seeking out the best teachers you can find, then that way you will progress far quicker. So I will put some links to the courses and products I've mentioned in the video description and comments as well, if that interests you. But I hope that you found that little talk, that mini talk, helpful. I hope you found this discussion helpful. So as I say, I'm intending to start these classes with a little talk, and then we can get on to moving on to all the questions that have been asked. So welcome to Nikki, Mystic NJ, Kevin, Sue, Christine, Ms. Rocker. So welcome to you all. Lovely to see you all in the class. Christine, sitting in the power is a very powerful practice, and I'm forever grateful for your guidance. Well, I'm forever grateful that it's a practice that's been passed down by so many mediums, but it can certainly definitely help progress your mediumship. And as I say, there's a good playlist on the channel for those who are not familiar with it, if you want to get to understand it better. So let me start working through the questions then. We'll go through. So the way it works is I go through your questions one at a time, and we just work through them in order. If you want to get your question answered sooner, you can use the super chat facility at the bottom next to the chat box, where there is a little $sign. If you make a small donation, I will answer your question as the next question. But otherwise, you can just wait for me to work my way down and come to it. So do ask lots of questions. Do pop them in the chat box. That way, it gives me things to talk about. If you don't ask me questions, the class ends sooner. That's pretty obvious, isn't it? Absolutely. Okay, first question. Mystic NJ. When I'm channeling, why do I feel spirit in two different ways? One in my heart or chest area as a deep pressure outside myself, like standing near me. Why is that? So I think you mean, why do you feel it in two different ways? One within your heart or chest as a pressure, and one outside yourself standing near you. Now, many people ask you loads and loads of questions about what do I experience when? And that could be when you're sitting for spirit, sitting in the power. That could be when you're working with spirit. That could be when you're doing trance. That could be doing whatever spiritual practice you're doing. People ask me, why do I feel X, Y, or Z? And the simple answer is, I don't have all the answers. But what you're experiencing is the energy of spirit. So how you experience the energy of spirit is unique to you. How I feel it will be unique to me. How you feel it is unique to you. How somebody else feels it is unique to them. So there are as many ways as there are people. Now, it's important to recognize as well that spirits, when we're working with spirit, they don't have a physical body. They They are fundamentally consciousness, thought. They're fundamentally a mind. Yes, you can argue they have an etheric body, but whenever I work with spirit in mediumship or in trance, I'm not aware of spirit having a body wandering around me, standing next to me, or anything like that. It's important to recognize that. So that is not something that I experience. It's not something that the vast majority of mediums experience. Now, sometimes you occasionally do see spirit projected in their body, but not always. But remember, what each person gets is unique to them. And I'm not here to deny anybody their experience. I see some people who say, oh, no, that can't possibly happen. Someone says this happened to me and someone goes, no, can't happen. How do you know? Have you experienced everything there is to experience? No, of course you haven't. So nobody can say that. So how can spirit affect us? We can feel it around our head. We can feel it within the body. There's a multitude of different feelings. You could get that pressure. You could get that static electricity. You could get some people in the early stages, the energy of spirit can make them feel a little bit sick. It can really create like a rush of energy within them. It can create like an excitement, which can also feel a bit like fear, because the two are very, very closely interlinked. And sometimes the nervous energy of it can affect you and make you feel a little bit nauseous. It's very rare, though, that to happen, but it can. What I'm trying to say is these are all possibilities. But so what you're experiencing is obviously how you experience the energy of spirit and the energy of your guides. Now, when different guides blend with me, I get what's called an energy signature. I sense the energy of that spirit. Different spirit guides have a different feeling. And so we learn to blend with them, and we learn to recognize their energy signature. And sometimes we call it a calling card as well. Sometimes it comes in very strong initially, but once we get used to it, there's no need to bring it quite so strong. I sometimes say to my guides, can I have that calling card you used to start with again, just because I enjoy it? And they don't do it so often anymore. And they don't always respond by doing it neither. But if you are interested in learning more about guides and helpers, I do have a course on that. It's called Understanding Guides and Helpers, 4 sessions, each class lasting about 2 hours. And within each session, there's either a meditation or an exercise for you to get to know your guides better. So I can't go through all of it here, obviously. But if that sounds of interest, do check out that course. So that's what I would say is what's happening is that's how you're experiencing spirit. And what may happen is it may change over time. How we begin to experience them is not always where it moves to. It progresses, it's changing. And mediumship's forever changing. It's important to recognize that. So I hope that helps you in some way. Kevin, nice to catch it live. Well, great to have you in the room live as well. Nikki, is it possible to make contact with someone you don't know who is in a coma on the threshold of life and death? A friend asked me to do this for her. I did it and could validate and give some messages. So I do have a video on my channel. It's called Can You Link with the Living? And I go through all the different scenarios when it is actually possible to link with the living, of which being in a coma is one. Somebody who's got a brain injury or got advanced dementia or Alzheimer's, it's also possible to link with those. It's also possible to link with people very close to the point of passing. If they're about to take their transition to spirit and they're in and out of consciousness, at that point, mediums sometimes do link with them as well. I brought through a lady who hadn't passed yet, and her greatest concern is, will somebody take care of my cat? I know I'm going, but will somebody please find a good home for my cat? That's all I'm bothered about, is the cat I'm leaving behind. I don't want it to be put down. That is her biggest concern. So absolutely, so I hope that helps you understand that it is possible to communicate with somebody who is in a coma. Now, is it easy to do? Not necessarily. The person's got to want to communicate with you. So just because you know somebody who might be in that state, don't suddenly say, okay, this is a great experience for me to try and do mediumship with them and try and force it to happen, because you're much more likely to trigger your own imagination. Just let it happen naturally. Let it develop naturally. Now, if someone came to me and said, can you link with this person in a coma? I'd say we'll wait and see, but I can't guarantee it. Absolutely. I will never try and guarantee any communication, particularly with the living. They happen spontaneously in my experience. And usually we're not even aware of the fact the person is living. What happens, the reason I know they're living is because a person says to me, Well, I can take everything you've given me. There's only one problem, and that's that they're alive. And you go, okay. And you say, okay, so can I just check what, is there dementia there? Is there a brain injury there? Are they close to passing? And invariably the answer is yes to one of those three. And that's how I've learned myself that this is possible through all the years of practicing mediumship over the last 20 odd years. When this happens and you go, wow, that's interesting. So yes, absolutely. And can you bring them through immediately after passing? Absolutely. I brought people through within half an hour of them passing without trying to link with them. It just spontaneously happens, you understand. It's important to recognize that. So is this possible, or did I imagine it? Yes, it's absolutely possible. And I'm glad you experienced it. However, as I said, trying to force a connection like that, sometimes I don't recommend trying to do that. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if somebody says, can you link with my whoever, I can get a huge amount of information psychically from the person about them. And I can dress it up as a link, but it's not. It's not. You need to understand that. So someone can say, oh, I'd love you to connect with my mum in spirit. I can feel straight away from their energy, the nature of the relationship with their mum, how much mum meant to them, even some of the shared experiences there psychically. So we can get a huge amount of information on the psychic without even having a spirit link. It's important to recognize that. So when I'm doing mediumship, I'm looking for the consciousness of spirit to come and blend with me. And if I did pick up information psychically, the important thing is always to say where it's coming from. There is a video on my channel as well. Is it psychic? Is it from spirit? And how do I tell the difference? And so if you're not sure whether you're getting it psychically or from spirit, do check out that video. It goes through it in a great deal of detail. Hope that helps. So, do you consider there is a lack of philosophy being taught or shared during development? Simply, in one word, yes, absolutely. What is the point of development without understanding some of the bigger issues associated with it? Without understanding that, hang on a minute, if we survive physical death, then we are an eternal being. What does that mean? What is the purpose of life in the context of that? And how can we make the most of our time here to gain the greatest benefit for the soul? I talk about some of those issues in my course on spiritual self-development, because we fundamentally are a soul. As we live our lives, we need to fundamentally check in with that eternal aspect of self that we are. By doing that, we'll get the greatest benefit from this life. Absolutely. So yes, there should be more philosophy. Is it popular? No. The reason a lot of people don't teach it as much is because people don't want to come to it. They don't want to pay for it. A medium who used to come to our church, she's now in spirit, a lady called Minister Jean Bassett, was one of the finest speakers of our movement. Her philosophy was phenomenal. Her speaking was phenomenal. In our church, going back, if we had a well-known medium teaching a course, it'd be full, 20, 30 people, easy. But we had her come along to teach philosophy. There was 3 of us in the back garden with her. And what a shame that there was that opportunity to learn how to work with the philosophy of spiritualism, to learn how to work with philosophy, to learn to do inspirational speaking, and very, very few people were interested. And this is a problem. A lot of people don't want to put that kind of class on because people don't always turn up for it. So that becomes a challenge. And therefore there becomes a lack of philosophy being taught during development because there's not the call for it. There's not the demand for it. Everybody wants to learn to be a medium. Everybody wants to learn the skills of mediumship. But the bigger picture, understanding the bigger picture, less so. But like I said at the talk at the beginning, when we work on spiritual development, that will help us the most. When we understand the philosophy, when we understand the deeper underpinnings of why mediumship is even possible, it will help us in our development. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I'll take you back to this. I can see there's a comment about the pioneers. I can highly recommend all of Martin's classes. I particularly like the one about the pioneers and mediumship. So one of my courses that I offer, it's not on there. No, it's not. But one of those courses on that page is called Great Mediums of the Past, where I spoke about the 5 mediums who most inspired me in my development, which is Gordon Higginson, Estelle Roberts, Helen Hughes, Morris Barbanel, who was the medium for Silver Birch, and Harry Edwards, who is a fabulous healer and also trance medium. And when we look at all of those, all of them, there was a very strong spiritual element to them. All of them had a very strong religious element to them. Spiritualism was their religion, but it meant so much more to them. Whilst they were fabulous at the mechanics of the mediumship, it was underpinned by a deeper spiritual understanding and a deeper spiritual motivation. That's what I'm saying about spiritual self-development, is that actually, when you start looking into it and you start to understand why mediumship is important, when you start to understand why it's important to help people, why it's important to touch souls, why it's important in so many different ways, that philosophy aspect of it, that helps us so much more. Because once we understand the why of doing it, the right why, not the wrong why, not the wrong why of doing it for fame or adoration or followers or any of that, but doing it for the right reasons, to serve the two worlds, to help people, to create healing, to uplift, to reunite, to help those who are grieving. When we look at the right reasons for doing it, and you understand that and make it a part of your development, your mediumship will progress so much quicker. That's what I was talking about with the spiritual self-development. So I hope that that helps. I hope that that's beneficial for you. Okay, next question. Ms. Rocker, do all people charge you money to work with you developing your gifts, or should I look for a place who does not charge? So some people do circles classes and offer them for free. Some other mediums, there is a charge for it. Those who run courses, generally you have to pay to do a course. Structured courses, generally there's going to be some kind of charge. If somebody is a full-time working medium, they've got a rent to pay or a mortgage to pay, they've got bills to cover, they need to earn money. So really, we don't expect anybody else to give us things for nothing. So I can understand why there is a charge. I myself, I offer these classes for free, but of course I offer other products for which I charge. I offer all my study program, my videos, my courses, my mentorship, all of that. There's a cost attached to it, albeit hopefully not a high cost. Ideally, we want it to be accessible and affordable. That's the important thing to recommend. But equally, it's no good doing everything for free and then being destitute and on the street because you can't pay your rent and you're being thrown out. You can't eat. That's not going to help anybody. So yeah, I always say with everything, there should be some degree of energy exchange. And speaking of energy exchange, thank you very much, Sheila G, for your super chat donation. That is much appreciated. I love the way you're teaching your perspective. Happy New Year. Let me buy you a cup of coffee, tea. Yes, service and healing. Thank you so much, Sheila. That is lovely. There's no question to go with it. So yes. So people do charge. Yes, there are free things you can do. But I think if you are looking to develop, then I would say seek out the best teaching you can find. And usually that's going to come with a cost attached to it. But hopefully it will be worth it. It will be worth it. For many people do courses, classes with different mediums, different centers. And yes, there is a fee attached to it generally. Beginner circles, there's quite a lot of people who offer a very basic circle or an opportunity to work on a relatively free basis, especially online. There's a lot of stuff online that's offered free. But ultimately, as I say, for many mediums, if it's a huge aspect of their time, then they are going to have to charge for it. I do get that. I see that. Kim, how do you prepare for a reading? That's a big question, isn't it? I have a course. One of my courses is Better Private Readings. And preparation for doing readings is a significant part of one of those classes. So I can't talk about it in depth. But the bigger picture, I mentioned as well, I'm going to mention my Getting Better Evidence course. Because the Getting Better Evidence course, within that, I talk about setting up frameworks for working with your mediumship, setting up structures and frameworks for what you want from spirit. So if I'm going to do a reading, I will set my intent with spirit. I will make some time before the readings, if it's multiple readings, or reading, if it's singular, to sit and blend with spirit, to set my intent that I'm going to be doing this reading. I would like someone who belongs to them to come forward. I'd like them to bring all the different aspects I would love to have in my mediumship. Good evidence, personality, the presence of spirit, information that's going to really demonstrate to them the survival of death if it's their first time, if they really want to know their loved one survives, and just recreate that reunion, create that reunion of them to bring people together and to create healing, of course, to bring that love and healing. And so we set the intent of what we want from the demonstration. But of course, in the preparation of it, you need to, if you're doing it in person, you need to make sure the space you're going to work in is tidy. If you're doing it online, you're going to want to make sure you're not interrupted. You've got all those other aspects of preparation as well. There's a lot of preparation. If I was doing a demonstration, it's a similar process. Before the dem, I will start preparing, start sending my thoughts to spirit from what I would like from the demonstration. So if that's of interest to you, do check out those courses. But every medium will do it in a different way. We all do it differently. And you have to find what works for you. That's the thing. Okay, next question. Debs, what's your thoughts on psychic detection? Do you feel that some missing people's souls may not want to be found? Thanks so much. So, psychic detection. Are there mediums who can do psychic detection? Absolutely. Many mediums who can do it in the history of the movement. Absolutely. However, okay, you know that this is Down to Earth channel. I tell it like it is. I tell it as I see it. My views may not be your views. What I say may not resonate with you, or it may, I don't know. What I've seen recently in the last 10 years is a huge surge in popularity in people wanting to be psychic detectives and to people want to protect and wanting to practice psychic development before they've even got the basics of mediumship under their belt. And on one level, I find it disrespectful to those whose loved ones have passed. And, it was always taught in the past that if that aspect of your mediumship was meant to be, it would unfold at some point once you'd become a working medium. You become the working medium first, and then if spirit want to work with you in that way, it will start to unfold and it will naturally progress and naturally develop, and you don't have to force it. It's going to happen. That's how I personally feel about psychic detection. The best mediums who do psychic detection don't tell people about it. They don't shout it from the rooftops. And the most respected ones, from the point of view of the authorities, they also don't want the mediums talking about it. But then you have a big case. I hate to use any case in particular, but someone goes missing, and then you have loads of people trying to tune in and say what happens. Oh, this happened, that happened, the other thing happened. And if you actually look at it the way I would teach it, okay, everybody write down what you're getting, and then when at some point in the future it comes to like what really happens, we'll look and see who's accurate. Now, when you do that, you'll find out the vast majority of psychic detection is fluff. The vast majority of it is wrong. It's coming from imagination. It's truly not coming from spirit. There are many, many people who make predictions, or many, many people who talk about missing persons cases, and it proves to be inaccurate. There have been many famous mediums who've been caught out on TV by saying the person is dead to the loved one. I've got them here now, they're working with me, they're dead. And that person goes away traumatized, grieving. They've lost their loved one. A little while later, their loved one turns up, and they hadn't lost them. Now that creates huge harm. The job of a medium is to create no harm. The job of a medium is to create healing, but above all, do no harm. And when I see that happening, I get angry, because what gives someone the right to hurt somebody in that way? Now, yes, as a medium, You may think you're linking with that person in the spirit world, but you're not. So because I've seen it so often, how do I really know I was or I'm not? And this is a challenge facing people who want to do psychic detection and work with authorities. You've got to build a track record of being correct. You've got to be someone you'd go to, and you've got to know that it's definitely coming from spirit and not your own mind. You know, there's some famous people who were psychic detectives in the past. Gerald Croiset from, I think he was Belgian. And he worked on certain cases and could get nothing. He was probably the most famous psychic detective medium. And he could get nothing on certain cases. So you've got to recognize the limitations. And does that mean spirit don't want to be found? Not necessarily, no. Spirit would want to create healing. Spirit would want to comfort the bereaved, absolutely. But you've got to understand that, first of all, they have to be passed to communicate through a medium. And so that's the important thing to recognize. Secondly, we have to remove our own mind from the equation, because our own brain can interfere. And if we know information about a case, it can interfere. It can get in the way. And there's been times myself when I've got stuff and I'm wondering, is this, you know, for example, there was a serial killer operated in this area quite some years back. And was a very famous case in the UK. And I got information about it. All I do is I just write it down. Don't tell a soul. Don't need to tell a soul. Just write it down to test myself, to check whether I'm getting information that is accurate. When I get information about a case, if I feel I'm receiving something, I'll write it down. But what I found was when I tested it and looked at it, I'd say 80% of it was inaccurate. So therefore, I would not work doing psychic detection, because through my own testing of self, I can see that a lot of it is clouded by our own mind. But I don't think I don't like the idea of someone saying, let's do a psychic detection class. And here we've got this missing person, put a photograph of them. What do you all get? I feel that is very disrespectful to the grieving relatives of that person who is missing at this moment in time. And it can take away hope as well, absolutely. If the relatives actually want to go to a medium to see if they can get some information, that's different. But again, I want them to go to a medium with a good track record, and a medium who's not interested in self-promotion, is not interested in tell everybody that they do this, is not interested in telling the newspaper. You know, so many people tell the newspapers, oh, I was right, I got that. But I guarantee you, they got 90% of stuff that was a load of cobblers for other stuff. I guarantee you. It's the nature of the beast. So that may completely disagree with what everybody else thinks about psychic detection. But from my experience and my testing of when people say I'm getting this, I say, okay, let's write it down. And then when the case finally does become resolved, check it out and what happened. No, it wasn't right, you see. Everybody just remembers the bit they got right. They don't remember the 80, 90% that doesn't work. So anyway, that's probably upset a few people listening, but I hope you understand where I'm coming from. My point is, as mediums, we should cause no harm. My point is, we should have respect for those who have lost loved ones and who are grieving. And my point is as well that any psychic detection should be done in a very respectful way. And it's not a game. It's not a circle exercise. You know, I've taught many circles over the years. I've used dozens and dozens of different exercises, but I would never ever teach that, because I don't think it's appropriate. So anyway, I'll get off my horse and shut up now. Ms. Rocker, I went for healing. I ended up channeling her mother for 45 minutes, yet she charged me. I don't think I got the energy healing I paid for. Okay, so there's a lesson in this for you, I'm afraid. It's a two-way thing. If you go to someone for a service, then you should let them do their service. If you then say, hang on a minute, I've got your mum, and start bringing someone's mum through, you're working for them. But because they charge for their time, some people will still charge you. So for me, I'm always very disciplined about when I work. If someone asks me for a reading and comes and books a reading with me, they get a reading. Any other time, I don't do it. And it would be very rare for me to overstep that boundary. The reason why is I've given readings to people who've not asked for them, and it's caused challenges and problems. I learned very early in my development not to do it. So if you go to someone for healing, just relax and enjoy the healing, and remember, you've not got to work. It's not your job to work. Hopefully that helps. Daft Babe, how I'm a medium trainer, I'm struggling to develop myself with consistency. I think all mediums, to begin with, find mediumship development challenging and find it very hard to achieve consistency. It's very common. What's the solution? The solution is to keep practicing. The solution is some of those things I spoke about at the beginning, about how you can speed up your development, of learning to sit for spirit, sitting in the power, going to the best possible quality teaching you can get, understanding the theory, that what underpins it. And by then you'll hopefully will help you understand what you're trying to do. Many people come to classes or come to workshops and they've had no real formal training. They don't really understand how to do mediumship, and it works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't, because they don't really know how to connect to spirit to start with. I find most people don't understand the power, have not built their own power. Most people do not understand how to make that connection with spirit, and most people don't understand how to stay there connected with spirit and how to hold that connection. And so what happens is they either can't connect properly, can't get to the spirit world, they don't learn how to connect properly, or they haven't got the power to sustain themselves being connected, because power is what fuels mediumship, or they just don't understand how to stay there, and they just get there for a little bit and drop out. They're the most common problems, challenges, things that we see with mediumship. So definitely, if you're understanding some of the theory can help you better, understanding how to connect, understanding why it's necessary to build your own power. Hopefully that all makes sense for you. But yeah, consistency is a challenge. If you expect to be inconsistent to begin with, that's great. But after, say, 5 years of development, if you're still having problems with consistency, there's something going on that needs to be looked at. And the best way to do that would be with a good teacher to help you understand what's happening within your mediumship. For me, feedback on your mediumship is vital. It truly is. You want to know what's working, and you want to know what's not great. What is the problem you're facing? What is the likely issue, and how can you move it forwards? So definitely that will help people. Daft Babe, you talk a lot about discerning imagination. How do you know when it's true communication versus made up? Do you ever doubt your evidence? Well, the first thing you need to do is to keep your brain out of it. First thing you got to do is to quieten your mind. So meditation is a very valuable tool to learn to train the mind to be quiet. So when I work for spirit, I do not want my own mind coming in whatsoever. Everything that pops in my mind, I want to come from spirit. So I have to train my own mind to shut up, my own imagination to get out of it. We have to train that monkey mind to go. That's why vital tools like sitting in the power, that kind of meditation with the focus of where when things come in, we let them go. That is vital to training mediumship. Because if you don't do that, the chatter of your own mind can forever interfere. Your own imagination can kick in. And mediumship really does feel like your own imagination. I get things come in my mind and I think, this can't be right. But it is. It is. It just feels like a vivid imagination at times. But mediumship uses your imagination. Spirit project images onto the imagination of your mind. Spirit, when they work with you, they blend with you. They work through your subconscious, whose language is imagery and emotions. It feels like your imagination. That's where the imagination is rooted, in your subconscious. So it feels like it. So first of all, you have to develop mediumship to be able to be a medium. And then you need to be able to check whether it's coming psychically. You need to check whether it's coming from spirit, or you need to check whether your own mind's interfered. What happens is we may have had a link where this and this happened in the past, and we get another link that starts to follow the pattern. And what happens is our own mind goes, oh, I know what happens next. And you add to it. We embellish it. Our own imagination sticks extra bits on that don't belong, because we've got this association that when that came through before, this is what it meant. Or when that came through before, this is how the link progressed. But no, every link is different. Every story is different. Every time you work with spirit, it is different. You cannot superimpose from your own mind. And that's when the imagination often kicks in, or the recipient will respond to you and say something to you. And then it brings our own mind in, it brings our own thoughts in, it brings our imagination in. So a lot of mediums ask for yes, no, don't know answers to try and resolve that. I personally not a big fan of the limitation of yes, no, don't know. If I give you someone's name, I'd much rather you say, oh yeah, that's their name. That's really good. I like that. Or if I say the date and they say, oh wow, that's their birthday. Not just can you take it? Yes. I want to know why. So, that's useful as well. So, but over time, we do get to recognize where imagination kicks in, but we have to monitor. Part of us has to monitor what's going on. Part of us has to listen to the evidence when we check it to see when our own imagination kicks in. Then we can learn when it's interfering. Then we can learn to try and suppress that from happening again. It's not easy to do, though. It will take time to do. Absolutely. And do we ever doubt our evidence? Absolutely. Most mediums, when they're getting things, will think, really? That can't be right. But over time, we learn to trust spirit. We learn to trust that what we give is right. So it's learning that trust, building that trust in spirit and self. If I know I'm a good medium and I know I'm right 80, 90% of the time, I trust then that that's what's going to happen. And it does. So hopefully that's helpful. So if you are enjoying this, do remember, hit the like button. If you do like my content, do subscribe to the channel. I will be posting a few more content videos up this year. I've just done live Q&As for quite some time, but I'm going to be bringing in a bit of additional content. So if you want to get that, do subscribe to the channel. And remember as well that I do have a sale on my website at the moment. There's 10% off all the products, the courses, the classes, the study program, the videos, the audio meditations. They're on my channel. So if that's of interest, do check it out. It runs until midnight on the 4th of January, midnight Pacific time on the 4th of January, Sunday the 4th of January. And after that, the prices will be rising as well because of the new year. I put my prices up every January, so they'll be going up. So if you are interested in purchasing something from my website, now's the time to take advantage of that. Okay, next question. So Debs, I can highly recommend, so you've spoken about that. Christine, Martin, do you have any suggestions for exercises to do during a development circle to help develop? I've been hosting circle weekly for the past 10 years and I feel like I've exhausted my library. That's a difficult one to answer really, because all teachers kind of develop their own library of exercises. So I know that Tim Abbott has a book out of some exercises. There's also another book out there called Spirit Circle Games, which has got some exercises in there. If you go on courses, watch the exercises that you're doing, see the ones you like, and you can create a variation of it to use in your own circle. Ask people who've been for training with other teachers what exercises they do and bring them in as well. But there are as many exercises as there are people, absolutely. But the basis is you need to try and do different tools to work in different ways. But yeah, there's a lot of different exercises. Maybe what I should do is have a think about all the different exercises I do and maybe make a class on it. A class on how to run a circle and different types of exercises to bring in for beginners versus more advanced, different ways to work. I won't probably give you the specific exercise as such, but ideas on how you would train different aspects, because that will help you to work out exercises as well. Does that make sense? It's not always as simple as saying, I saw that exercise done and repeating it, because unless you know the theoretical basis of why you're doing the exercise, unless you actually know what the purpose of the exercise is and how it's meant to work in practice. So for example, I went to a course and they played a bit of music and we linked to the bit of music and we had to get a link to the music. Well, okay, that's great. Now, what is the music attempting to do? Are we trying to get a piece of music that is meaningly significant to a spirit communicator? Are we trying to get some evidence that fits in with the theme of the music? is the music something that should have been a song, or something that was relevant from in their life as a memory? Do you see what I'm saying? There's numerous different ways in which you can work with music. It could be some aspect of the lyric that's important. It could be some aspect of the feel of the song that creates an energy that's important. The song itself could be totally meaningful. The song itself could be a memory link, or some lyric within the song may stand out as being, that line means something. So unless you have kind of like the purpose that underpins the exercise and why we're trying to do it, the exercise itself, you may do it and not understand what you're trying to do. So if somebody used to say to me, I'm going to play a song, I want you to link in with it, I'd be like, in what way? What are you asking me to do specifically? And often the teacher would say, I don't really know. Some such and such did that exercise and I'm just copying it. It's like, yeah, I see. Okay, I get you. But having the basis, the knowledge of that, why we're doing the exercise is the key. That is the key. Plus, what a lot of teachers as well are, they make their business through their teaching exercises. So very few will probably give them all away. That's another problem we have, is that we all have to build what we do based upon what we've seen, the knowledge we have, and then we need to sit and be creative and come up with ideas and go, okay, that's one way we could do that. So hopefully that may be benefit. Okay, next question. Daft Babe, I love Gordon. Wonderful. I like Gordon too. Close. There are so many great books on the subject. Could you recommend one or two? The problem with recommending books is if you say someone's book and you don't mention somebody else's, people say, why not? My favorite book is the book by Harry Edwards. It's called A Guide for the Development of Mediumship, and it's a chapter from his book, Life in Spirit. It's not easy to get hold of now. It used to be sold quite often. It used to be sold at the Arthur Findlay College shop, but I don't know if they sell it anymore. Let's see if I can see it. No, I can't. It's buried. The current version has like a gold cover, but I think the people who published it are no longer publishing anymore. So your best bet to get that one is probably from the Life in Spirit book by Harry Edwards. Harry Edwards' book, Life in Spirit, available from the Harry Edwards Foundation. Other books, there's some good books by Gordon Smith. There's a good book by Janet Nohavec, which is good, which is worth looking at as well. So there's a few to be getting. I can't remember what that's called now. Someone will probably know it. There's several I've got of hers, and I can never remember the names of all the ones. Developing Mediumship by Gordon Smith is a good book. I like that. But I really like the Harry Edward one. That's the one I like the most. So there's a few to be getting on with, but there are stacks of mediumship books being published of late. I must check out a few and have a look at them. So Daft Babe, it's not upsetting. You intend to serve and be respectful. This is great. So I presume that is in relation to the psychic detection. If we're coming at it from the right reasons and we're not using it for sensationalist purposes, and we're not, it's interesting to do, but I would say you don't, so I know there are some people who teach psychic detection courses, and hopefully they will teach the ethics and responsibilities of it, because it's so very, very important. But the bits I don't like is when I see on Facebook groups people posting this here's someone who's missing, let's all link in and see what we all get. And it's just like, no, that's definitely not the right way. So Violet, can I have a message from my Benziah? Now, I don't use this live Q&A. I don't do mediumship on this. So it's not an opportunity for me to link in with your loved ones, I'm afraid. And you asked a question why he died and why he had to die. And to be honest, I don't have those answers. None of us can, I remember when my mum died. It's like, why did she have to die as young as she was? And there's no easy answers. The Great Spirit, the divine God, knows the reason behind all things, but sadly, we don't. So these are not questions I can easily ask or help you with, I'm afraid. Laurie, a famous medium told me my spirit guides are two blue lights. Who would these beings be? Well, that's a very unusual thing to say. I've never ever heard a medium describe people's guides as lights. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Guides are generally people who've walked upon the earth, who've passed and gone to spirit, and who have some degree of skills that they can work with us to help us with our mediumship, with our development. So guides are generally discarnate souls who've walked upon the earth. For me, I believe it is a fundamental qualification for the job of being a guide, that you have to understand the earthly experience. You have to have lived an earthly life to understand the limitations of a soul operating through a body. So for me, the vast majority of guides need to have that experience and knowledge. So a guide would not be a light. A guide is a person. A guide is a being. A guide is a personality. You often evolve souls, but they don't always have to be that evolved, provided they have skills that they can bring to help us. That's the important thing to recognize. So I hope that that is beneficial and helpful, but I don't know why they said that, and I don't know who your guides are, so I can't help you with that. If you want to get to know your guides, what I can offer is my course, Understanding Guides and Helpers, where I go through in great detail what guides and helpers are, the different types of guides and helpers, how we can get to know our guides and helpers, how we can work with our guides and helpers. And it's not like a lot of stuff that other people teach. There isn't any fluff or BS in there. I try and get rid of that. I'm not big into angels, as many people who know my teaching over the years will understand. So at the end of the day, for me, we need to establish a relationship with those who work with us from the spirit world. Our guides and helpers choose to work with us to help us with our earthly life and to help us with our spirit work. And we have to cultivate and build that relationship. But I don't rely upon anybody else to tell me who or what my guides are. I'll tell you for why. Because the vast majority of stuff I've been given over the years is complete rubbish. I've been given everything from an Aborigine to a Zulu, the A to Z of guides, and most of it is just wrong. I know who my guides are because I work as a trance medium. I've worked as a trance medium for 14 years or more, bringing them through, and the communication from them gives me huge volumes of information to understand them. But they are not a light. They are a person in spirit. They are a mind in the spirit world. They're an evolved soul in some instances. Not always, as I say. Some guides don't have to be evolved. One of my guides is not necessarily that evolved, but he's funny. He brings humor. He helps uplift people. He plays a role that is not so evolved, but actually probably really is. We're probably all more evolved than we expect ourselves to be, even those of us here. Chrisanne, how do you know you're ready to start your business of doing readings? So first of all, never seek to set up the intent of doing mediumship as a business. Not everyone will be able to reach the point where they are capable of being a professional medium and to work doing readings. It's important to recognize that. Secondly, you really need to be at a point where you have a very, very good degree of consistency. If you're going to start charging the public and offer yourself to do readings to the general public, then really 80% of your readings have to work and work well. That for me is the criteria. You can't go out and work when only 1 in 3 work, because people might want their money back and your reputation will suffer. If you don't work well and you don't give people a good reading, you won't get recommended by them. And don't be surprised when they leave negative feedback, and don't be surprised if it affects your reputation and it affects you trying to grow a business. So only move on to it when you're at the level where, and rely upon other people's opinions as well. for me, there's two kinds of people. The kind of person who's reluctant to do it and is not sure they're ready and has to be gently persuaded by tutors and teachers that, yeah, it's right, you're ready to start doing it. Go out and start doing it. You're good. It works consistently. Go and do it. And then there's the other scale of people who think they're great, who are not doing it right, who are not able to do it well, and they're out there causing utter chaos. And it doesn't work. They're not actually a very good medium. They've not put the time, the effort in to hone the skills of mediumship, and then they're out there doing it too soon. And yeah, you might get a little bit right here or there, but that's not the point. You want to be getting the vast majority right. If I was to do 10 readings, I'd expect at least 8 of those to be good readings, maybe 2 that are challenging, but hopefully even within the 2 that challenge, the people will still understand the communicators, and the people will still understand their loved ones were there, even though they may not have the depth of the other readings. A good medium, it should be working consistently the vast majority of the time. And a reading not working should be an absolute rarity. So if you want to know more about are you ready to do it, again, I talk about that in my Better Private Readings course. I go through all about the essence of readings, the practice of readings, and the business as well of how you would progress and develop. Tony, I read a fascinating book on astral projection called Excursions to the Spirit World by Frederick Sculthorpe. What are your thoughts on astral projection? I gave it a try, but I lost my nerve. Is it possible to do astral projection? Yes, there are many documented cases. Have I ever done it? No. Do I want to do it? Not really. It's not something that particularly excites me either way. Some people say there are dangers associated with astral projection. I don't really know. I'm not really an expert on it, having never done it. For me, I would much rather just connect with people's loved ones and create that healing, that reunion. That's my passion. Whether things like doing astral projection don't really excite me, I'm afraid. So it's not an area I'm too familiar with, nor an area that I will look into developing. But if people want to develop it, yeah, by all means, go for it. Find people who've got that experience, that understanding, that knowledge, and hopefully they can help you. But sadly, I can't. Joanne, love listening. We'll look at your website. Thank you. Catherine, excited to catch this live. I'm glad that you could make it. Good. Joanne, great idea to suggest exercises for circle with some teaching. As I say, the basics is you need to understand why you do the exercise. And you need to understand within the exercise what people are likely to get and what the challenges may be, which is why a good teacher, you really need a good teacher to understand the basis of the exercise. David, a missing person 40 years ago showed me where buried. Teachers channeled from a pic. Very intense at the spot. Is there a way to confirm without digging? If I walk away, I get cold or warm and closest. Quite simply, no. You know, this is the problem. We can feel things very profoundly and strongly, but how do we know it to be true? How do we know it to be true? We don't. And as I say, even when very famous psychic detectives like Gerard Croiset can't get information on certain cases or get it wrong, when they get it wrong, then we have to recognize that psychic detection is not a precise science. You know, you could take the information to the authorities, but how likely are they to take you seriously? Now, one thing you've got to be very careful of if you do psychic detection is that you don't make yourself a suspect. If you go to the police with information that is only known, like for example, a good friend of mine is a policeman, and I talked to him about this, and he said for some time he was responsible for a great deal of the major crimes in a certain area. And he said if someone came to him with very detailed information related to that crime that was not in the public domain, first thing they would do is hold that person in as a suspect, a prime suspect, or somebody who knows the person who did it. Because to have that information about what's happened when it's not in the public domain is challenging. So some police forces will use psychic detectives, others won't. So there's no easy answer. So your chances are you'll never really know unless somebody else is able to give evidence that results in that being found. But as I say, with all these things, when we get some information, write it down, make a note of it, And then if information comes into the public domain, we can check it out and see, are we right? So we see what we're getting. And, we need that validation. As I said at the beginning with psychic detection, I'm of the opinion that if you're meant to do it, you will get experiences over time that will show themselves to you, that will demonstrate. But ultimately, remember, to be a psychic detective, you've got to have developed your mediumship to a high standard. And plus, it's not for everybody. I remember Estelle Roberts in her book, she talks about she got involved in a few murder cases, and she was able to help resolve the crimes. But she said she didn't like doing it. It wasn't an area of mediumship. She didn't have the makeup to do it, because seeing in detail the graphic nature of the crime affected her quite profoundly, because she's very sensitive, of course. So for quite a few people, they don't want that. So it's a unique kind of person who's going to be doing that work, I would say. Daft Bay, are some guides ones that were never alive? I would say, as a main guide, no, because the job of the main guide is to be there with you through your life, to help you with your development. And they have to understand the conditions of life. They have to. So if you want to go for job application, we're looking for someone to become this person's main guide. Job application, number one, you have to have lived an earthly life and understand the earthly conditions. I believe that is the prerequisite. However, there are minds on higher levels that through intermediaries we can connect with. For example, Silver Birch, the medium, the guide of Maurice Barbanel. Silver Birch did live on Earth, but it was a long, long time ago, and it evolved to a point where he moved far away from the Earth, and he had to use an intermediary. He had to use somebody, the etheric body of a Native American. Silver Birch was not a Native American, but had to use the body of a Native American to get closer to the Earth plane, to connect to Maurice Barbanel, to bring through those teachings. But it is quite possible that someone at a very evolved level who's never had an earthly experience may be able to bring through teachings on philosophical nature through a medium, but not be their main guide. So we can have a guide that has not incarnated upon the earth. Yes, we can receive teachings from them, but I wouldn't say they were the main guide. The main guide is maybe linking to them to help, if you like, step down and bring those teachings through. I hope that makes sense. I hope that, can you see what I'm saying? I'm hoping that will make sense to you. Independent puppy. Are we on this earth to learn? Absolutely. Some people refer to this, the earth, as Earth School, but you are a soul. You are eternal. If you are eternal, this earthly life, by definition, must be but one small step of a much greater journey, one small fragment of a much greater lifespan. So if you have multiple lives, if you have multiple life experiences, what is the purpose of each life experience? It is to grow the soul. It is to grow that greater part of us that is eternal, to give us opportunities to express our spiritual nature, opportunities to refine the spiritual qualities within us, opportunities to learn and grow as a soul, as a spirit, opportunities to help other people, because it's only through helping others, serving others, that the soul gets to grow. Silver Birch said that service is the coin of the spirit. Service is what makes you wealthy as a soul. Service is what benefits you the most. So are we on the earth to learn? Absolutely. And if we ever find ourselves not learning upon the earth, we're not doing what we're meant to be doing. We're here to learn. We're here to grow. We're here to experience all that life has to offer. We're here to refine what we truly are. That spirit, that soul, that cannot be destroyed. So when we truly recognize that we are eternal and that everything of this earth, even though it may create a lot of stress for us, even though we may go through difficult times, it's all temporary. And we contain within us all we need to get through it, because we are eternal. And of course, we have the support of the spirit world, and we have the support of our Creator. Absolutely. So anyway, I've digressed into a bit of philosophy. well, she'll keep going. Violet, thank you for answering my question. You're very welcome. Chris-Anne, thank you so much. I'll check out your classes. Patricia, thank you for your time this evening. Love the clear-cut, no-fluff approach. Thank you. Well, I'm glad you like it. As I say, I tell it as I see it. I know that my views may not always correspond with other mediums, may not always correspond with other teachers, but I think we have to be honest with that, with who we are and how we see things. Now, with psychic detection, do I think it's a value? Absolutely. Do I think it can help people? Absolutely. Am I saying to you shouldn't do it? No. I'm saying we need to do it, bearing in mind the ethics, the responsibilities, and bringing the respect to it that it needs, and understanding some of the challenges that you can potentially put yourself in the firing line as a suspect and all those things. But, you know, you've got to be very careful with those things. Catherine, I've done lots of courses. Which course of yours would you recommend to help reignite the excitement of the mediumship path? That's a good question. I don't know. When you look at the courses I offer, you know, you need to look and see if there anything on there that excites you. I personally, the great mediums of the past is the one that really gives insights for many people as to what the purpose of this work really is about. If you're lacking confidence, you can get the confident medium. If you want to work on self, you've got spiritual self-development. If you want to get into the mechanics of it, you've got the fundamentals of mediumship, followed by getting better evidence. If you want to look at blending and working, sitting with spirit more, there's meditation, sitting for spirit. So I can't really recommend. You've got to see which one resonates with you, which one you're drawn to, which one inspires you most. Daft Bay, which course for developing mediums do you first recommend? So in terms of the courses, so with my products, you've got a choice. So I have the courses, which were the latest to be developed, so they're more modern. I do have my study program. Study program works through things in a very methodical, detailed way and builds up. And that one, I do offer a certificate of completion at the end. Each of the modules is 10 classes. It's 5 classes of the videos plus 5 tutorials which go through commonly asked questions. So what happened is I collected a whole bunch of questions about each topic. So for, say, connecting with spirit, people ask questions about that class, and I compile 20, 30 questions, and we go through the additional 20 to 30 questions to help illustrate the content. So that probably goes into the most detail, I would say. So that's a study program, which is based upon my 24 videos, but you can buy any video you like singly, individually, £15. They're currently $13.50 in the sale. Just if you want to just dip into a certain topic, you can. So obviously, if you're going to do the classes, then classes 1 to 12 are logical. If you're going to do the study program, start with modules 1, module 2, building up to module 3. If you want to do the courses, then what I'd recommend is meditation and sitting for spirit, followed by the fundamentals of mediumship, followed by getting better evidence to give you the basic foundation of mediumship. Then if you're interested in readings, you can move on to readings, and interested in platform, move on to platform. Hopefully that makes sense. So there's plenty of options there. I know it's not straightforward because these things were all developed at different times, but the content, I would say the content of the fundamentals of mediumship course is actually really quite similar to classes 1, 3, 4, and a bit of 5. So that kind of covers the fundamentals. So if you're going to buy the fundamentals, don't buy the mediumship classes, is what I'm trying to say. They kind of overlap a lot. Okay, next question. Why are people so afraid of Ouija boards? Well, a Ouija board is just a tool. But within our modern culture, it has an energy attached to it. Oh, you know, let's have a seance and let's get the Ouija board out. Certainly when I was growing up, it was a thing that people were frightened of, and thing that people, you know, you'd go somewhere and say, oh, let's all get drunk and get the Ouija board out and have a laugh. And the problem you've got is the intent you bring to spirit. Don't be surprised if people who try and communicate from the spirit world bring the same intent back. So are Ouija boards evil? No. Are they negative? No. What matters is the intent you bring to working with it. Have I worked with a Ouija board? Absolutely, I have. Have I been able to get meaningful communication through a Ouija board? Absolutely, I have. Is it a useful tool in that regard? Yes, but it's very slow. It really is. There are a lot of issues with the Ouija board where people can push and subconsciously move the marker around the board. All of those, you need to understand that that's part of it. But then when I hear people who say, well, let's get drunk, get the Ouija board out and have a bit of fun, and then something happens, the glass flies off and shatters on the wall, and they feel, oh my God, this is really scary. Well, you're getting drunk and having a bit of fun is the energy you want to bring. Don't be surprised if spirit come from the spirit world and say, well, they don't get drunk, obviously. There's no spirit in the spirit world. There's no alcohol there, but don't be surprised if they bring back an energy of having fun with you, because that's the intent you bring to it. So with all these things, it's important to have the right intent. So, but within the culture, the modern culture is perceived to be a negative thing. Within Christianity, it's very frowned upon. So yeah, that's what I would say. But all it is in its most simplest form is a tool. All it is a tool for communication. And obviously, in the past, it was a tool that was commonly used for communication with the spirit realm. But if you're going to use the Ouija board, do it for the right reasons. Do it for sincere communication with spirit, and don't do it for fun. It's not a game. David, thank you. Lucky I was not living in the country at the time, and I've worried how I feel if right. Just accept the experience happened, but understand that there's very little you can do about it. Be grateful that you've been shown that. As I say, if any information comes to light that helps to make sense of it in the future, look at that. Use that as validation if it is or if it isn't. But ultimately, I would let it go. I'd let the energy of it go. You don't need to hold it to you. A spirit may want us to help them, but there's limitations our end as well. We have they will understand that too. Absolutely. Laurie, is heaven really 3 feet above us and we are in their world rather than the other way around? I've never heard of that heaven is 3 foot above us. In that case, if you're 6 foot, you're half in heaven, you're half not. Nah. Whenever you go, if you live on the first floor, second floor, third floor, fifth floor, you're in heaven already. No, absolutely not. What is, the problem is, what is the spirit world? The spirit world is a world where those in the spirit exist. Is this world part of the spirit world? Well, I would say that it's interlinked, they're interblend. As mediums, all we do is we move our minds, we shift our minds to become aware of spirit. I don't think spirit's up there, down there, sideways. It interpenetrates. As a medium, I've got to shift my awareness, raise my... we say it's at a different frequency. It's at a higher frequency of vibration. As mediums, we've got to raise our energy and shift our awareness to connect to it. Do you know there's magic eye books? I often use the magic eye as a really good analogy. The magic eye books, you can look at a picture, but there's another picture within it. It's only when you change your focus, when you shift your awareness, that you begin to see that picture, that deeper picture within. And it's similar to mediumship and this world we live in. This spirit world is all around us. However, we've got to shift our awareness, shift our focus to tune into it. And it's not easy. It's you having to heighten your sensitivity to do that. It's not easy. If it was easy, everyone could do it. If it was easy, you wouldn't have to spend time developing it. But it's not easy. So yes, spirit is all around us. I never really talk about heaven. It's not a term I use, because if heaven exists, does that mean hell exists? Or are there just different levels within the spirit world? Which is what I believe. The spirit world is a series of hierarchical levels, if you like, but they all interblend and interpenetrate. If you're stuck at one level, oh no, I'm here and my loved one's there, I'm not allowed to go and meet them. No. You can go and drive and see your loved one in this country wherever they are. You can travel to see them. It's the same. You can move between levels. But fundamentally, the level your soul has evolved at is effectively the level that you will return to. But you can move up and down and away from that, of course, absolutely. You are not prevented from being with your loved ones in any way, shape or form. For me, there is no hell. There is just levels where less evolved or unevolved souls exist. So that's important to recognize. But how do we know this? Because of teachings from guides within the spirit world. They often say that heaven and hell are a construct of our own minds in this world. We can create heaven in this world and we create hell in this world as well. And other people can create that hell for us. Absolutely. You've got to look at war zones to see that happening. So for me, are we in the spirit world? Are they in our world? I would say that we exist. The spirit world is the totality of everything that exists. So by definition, because we exist as well, we are part of the spirit world also. That's why we are able to blend and link with it. Absolutely. It's a place from where we came and will eventually return. And we still remain, if you like, a part of it. But we are incarnated into a physical body, which creates a degree of separation from it. That's why we have to train ourselves to move back and blend with it. And it's hard to hold that blend. It's very easy to let it drop. And on one level, are we even meant to be aware of it on a day-to-day basis? Probably not, no. For the purposes of living our lives, it's easier if we are not so closely aware of it. But it's there. And we get those insights, we get those signs. Absolutely. So I would say that we are spirit beings having a physical existence. And this physical world still is part of a greater spirit world. The spirit world encompasses many worlds within worlds, of which this is one. That's what I would say. Hopefully that helps. Aline, why are some people able to see the spirit world and others cannot? Well, I believe that everybody can learn to connect to the spirit world and receive some degree of communication from spirit, but you have to learn to do it. It takes time, it takes effort. You have to be interested to put the time and effort into it. For example, if you say to me, am I interested in learning to do, learn to skateboard? I'd say, no, not really. Thank you very much. There's plenty of other things I could be doing with my time. So I'm not going to develop that as a skill because it's not something that really interests me, nor do I think I have the physical prowess at my age now to do it anyway. So again, if you want to develop it, you've got to have the desire to, the motivation to do so and give it the time and effort to do so. And you be careful about terms like seeing the spirit world because it's a very subjective seeing within our mind's eye. I don't see spirit people wandering around. No, I don't. Spirit come to me within my mind and I get glimpses within my mind's eye on the screen of my imagination. I've never seen a spirit person physically outside of me. Sometimes you'll hear a medium saying, oh, they've gone over to stand with you. But no, what it is the energy. They felt the energy in the room move to be around that person. They're not necessarily physically seeing your loved one exactly as they are. And even when spirit show us an image, it's not always photographically accurate. I often liken it to if you were to go and do an identity parade, they'll show you, they might show you, if you've witnessed a crime, they will often try and, they used to have like things to try and make up the face of the person who did it, and you put different bits together. It's a bit like that from the spirit world. They want to get across me, bald head, show me bald head, show me mustache, show me set of glasses. But if I was able to draw exactly what I see and show it to the person to go, well, they weren't quite like that. No, that's kind of an over-exaggeration of their features. So all spirit are using that for is to get over to me the features that matter, not photographically accurate. It takes a lot of effort to become photographically accurate for spirit to get that through to us. It is possible, but it takes a lot of effort. So all of us can learn to blend with the spirit world. All of us can learn to receive communication from the spirit world. And the vast majority of people can receive clairvoyant imagery and sometimes images of spirit people. But we don't see them like we see people here. It's not like that. But I believe we all have the ability. I believe it's an ability that everyone has. Some people say, is it gift or ability? Simple answer is we all have it to a degree. If you have it to a high degree, people might say you're gifted. Just like we can all do music, learn to play a musical instrument to some degree, but some people are naturals at it. Some people are very gifted. Some people have a huge potential to take it further. Same with all things, same with mediumship. So if you're interested in doing mediumship, learning mediumship, then yes, everybody can learn it to some degree, provided they want to, provided they're motivated to give it the time and effort. But if the idea of having to go to circles and classes regularly for months and years doesn't appeal to you, you won't develop it. There'll be other things in your life that are more important for you. Mystic NJ, thank you for your explanation of my question. You're very welcome. Debs, great answers and content. Martin, thank you. You're very welcome, Debs. So, have we come to the end of all the questions? It looks like we have. So remember, if you do like the content I provide on the channel, remember to subscribe, hit the like button for this video. If you've enjoyed it, you can leave me a comment as well. As I say, I'm planning on doing a little talk, or do a bit of a deeper dive on a question at the beginning of each session, like I did with this one. So let me have any topics, any questions you'd like me to do a deeper dive on as well, and I'll see if I can put that into a future one. I get often asked many questions, so the most frequently asked questions, I will probably go with that. I can see a couple more questions have appeared, so I shall answer those and we'll call it a day. Aline, would you say that most of the development was done through sitting in the power or practicing it, or a combination of the two? I'd say practicing is the core. You can't develop mediumship without practicing it. You cannot. It's not possible. You can't develop mediumship just by meditating and sitting with spirit. It's not going to happen. It's sitting with spirit is an add-on to the development of doing practice over time that will help you. That will help unfold the potentials within you quicker. But we can't develop by ourselves. Can you develop mediumship on your own? There's a video on the channel. I shall link to it in the description. Simple answer is no, you can't. You've got to work with people. You've got to bring loved ones through for people, and whether the responses they give you, can you take the information? Yes, no. That will help you to work out when it's working and when it's not. That will help you ultimately to develop it. So hopefully that answers that question. Mr. Genjay, can you speak more on psychopomp work, helping spirits cross over into the light? Do you have any course on that topic? No, that's not something I teach. It's not something that, for me, I don't think we are the ones who help spirit to cross. Think about it. When someone becomes a spirit, who are the best people to help them to come to terms with what's happened? Those in the spirit world. By all means, we can send healing to help that to be resolved. But I don't do spirit release. I don't do any of that. It doesn't fit within my philosophy. It doesn't make sense to me. The people who are best placed to assist spirit to cross over are those in the spirit world. And remember that no one is ever abandoned. I have a video on my channel as well. I can't remember what it's called now. Anyway, it's on my channel. The spirits get stuck in no man's land. Again, I can put a link to that one. The simple answer is no, absolutely not. The Great Spirit knows the whereabouts of all its creation. The divine knows where everybody is. You've got guides who work with you from the spirit world. They would help you at your point of transition. You've got loved ones, family and friends in the spirit world who you know. They will also help you at the point of transition. If you were to pass suddenly, unexpectedly, there are those within the spirit world who would know and would come forward to want to help you. It doesn't need me to help anybody. It doesn't make sense for me to help anybody. It's hard for me to link to those in the spirit world. That's not an easy thing to do. But those in the spirit world are best placed to do it because they're already there. It's very easy for them to communicate with each other because there's no barriers. But from this world there is. So yeah, it's not something I do, not something I teach, not something I talk about a great deal. And if you want a bit more detail on that, check out that one on my channel. So sorry I can't answer that one very well for you because it's not an area I necessarily believe in nor teach. So it's Again, it's some people do, but I don't. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Hasn't really made a lot of sense to me, I'm afraid. So I'm going to call it a day there. Bring the class to a close. Thank you everybody who's attended. Thank you everyone who watches it on the replay as well. If you've enjoyed it, if you enjoy it on the replay, do leave me a comment. If you've got a topic or something you'd like me to talk about for 10 minutes at the beginning of each future class, let me know and I'll do that. But I hope you've got lots of benefit from it. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I shall wish you a happy new year, a positive and uplifting 2025. And I shall see you all again in the next one. Take care. Bye for now.